Hello and welcome to the Home Assistant Podcast, episode number 52. My name is Phil. Joining me as usual, I've got with me Rohan. Good morning.
Good morning.
And an extra special good morning to our guest today from San Jose in California. It's Brendon. Hey, Brendon.
Hi, good morning.
All right, thank you so much for getting up that little bit extra early for us. We appreciate it. Time zones are never our friend on the podcast.
Yeah. How true that is. This episode is sponsored by Home Assistant Cloud by Nabokasa. Easily and securely access your local Home Assistant instance remotely for a small monthly fee that also supports the Home Assistant project. The configuration is done by the user interface, so there's no fiddling with router settings, SSL certificates, or any YAML.
Oh, right. So 0.95 is here this week, and some pretty big changes. The first big change coming out this week is a massive overhaul to the Amazon Echo integration. We'll attempt not to say the little lady's name in there so your devices don't keep activating. So through this release, 0.95 brings the ability for you to specify which entities are exposed to the Amazon Echo via the user interface. So you no longer need to do any things in the YAML files, such as filters to include or exclude. You can all now manage that through the UI. There is also now the option to send state changes to the Amazon app directly. If you want to use an Amazon Echo routine, so if you want to set up when a door opens, the Amazon Echo can maybe do something like start your morning flash briefing, or maybe if you have an import boolean that you want to do that with, that's all can be done through the Amazon Echo app. So that's really cool. There's actually some cool things that you can do with those routines that you can't do through Home Assistant. So it's cool that you can now send that data over to the Amazon Echo.
Yeah, I part of me really wishes that I can do that in Home Assistant even if that means you manually do it on, Home Assistant reaches out to the Echo application and programs whatever for me, right? It's kind of that idea of having one single central brain. But this is awesome. I know last week one of the things we didn't talk about yet is we had the I guess it was like a Home Assistant mini meetup. I was in San Diego last week, so myself and Paulus met up, and a few others joined. We had another 4 or 5 people join, and we were just chatting about home automation. And this actually came up, and I was showing the Google Home integration to a couple of the folks, and I'm super happy to see the Echo integration here too. So
yeah, because I'm guessing this brings basically it into line with what you were able to do with the Google Assistant, with entities being exposed that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I've played with the Google one. I haven't played with the Amazon one yet, but the Google one is, simple enough to use, and, it's there, it works, it's great. So I'm using it now.
So if you have previously specified any filters for your Amazon Echo devices, you will need to remove them from your YAML. I got caught out with that. I was looking, why is the UI all grayed out? Like I can't press any buttons, but at the top there was a little message just to say that I needed to update my YAML. So once again, things are moving away from the YAML in the config side of things, but yeah, it was seamless enough and made sense.
Yeah, exactly. So some new stuff coming up this release. So there's going to be a little better support for moving Home Assistant installations. So, i.e., if you're living on a boat like Adam or an RV which moves around, Home Assistant itself can actually has now support to update the GPS coordinates of your home location. So if you're in a mobile home, then great, there you go. You know where your home is now.
Yeah, that's really cool. It won't affect a lot of users, but I think the ability to just update the GPS coordinates when you've got one of those houses, because that affects a lot of things, like sunset times and all that. So really cool little addition.
Yeah, or even if you had like the RV example is great, and let's say you're doing a trip across the country or whatever across Europe or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Now you can stick Home Assistant on there. You can start automating all that stuff. But also, like to your point, hey, when is sunset wherever it is that I am, right? So I think that's great.
If you're a user of the AdGuard component or the AdGuard system, it's now being added as a component to Home Assistant. So AdGuard is a network-wide ad blocking system. And with the Home Assistant component, you can now control it from Home Assistant front end, and you can even automate it. So for example, you could block social media sites during the day, and then, once it gets to past a certain point, then you can allow them back on. So this is really good for people like that might have kids that don't want to control screen time. That can now all be automated through Home Assistant. And maybe if you're really cheeky, you can turn the adult filters off when you're home alone or something like that.
Another new update to Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. There's a text-to-speech provider from Google, which is paid, and they've got over 100 voices, 20 languages, so on and so forth. So there's a couple of pricing options around. So one is for more natural-sounding voices, which sounds like it's about $16 US per million characters. So that's a good way of pricing it, I guess. And then there's $4 for, I guess, the less natural sounding voices that are it's $4 for a million characters. So yeah, there's some integration in there now with Home Assistant for that too.
Yeah, so that's separate to the Google Translate integration. So if you're using the Google Translate API, that's remaining. It's not being replaced, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Rohan, this is one you'll enjoy. I know you're really big on the safety ones. The Queensland bushfire alerts protocol is now in. The GeoRSS component that was added a very long time ago now. There's now the ability for that to pull in data for the bushfires that may be happening in Queensland, which is in Australia. So another good addition there for safety.
Yeah, that's awesome. Some breaking changes. So the Life 360 integration, if you're familiar with the app, that it's mostly, I guess it's for couples and that kind of
families and
messaging each other, so on and so forth, finding out where you are. So the Life 360 integration, it's been around a while, but it's been broken for quite a bit. But if you're testing things out before and using the custom Life 360 component, this release actually has the official component in it. So there might be a breaking change for you there, or go in and use the official component. That's the option there too.
Yeah, which is it's good to see it come back, I think.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people were like, it's broken. What am I going to do now? Everyone's like, just use the custom component.
Yeah, quite a few people use it.
Yeah, it's very popular. All right, I'm actually going to play a little theme tune for this one because I think this is another little breaking change from the internet this week. Uber has decided to close off their API, effectively removing any third parties from being able to access Uber data. So if you were using the Uber component in Home Assistant, you had the ability to see, live estimated travel times and arrival times of an Uber pickup to you. And there's also real-time pricing information. Uber's decided with really bad communication to just disable that API for everyone. Well, at least for me, but I'm guessing a lot of people will be affected by this. They basically said that I had a month's notice, and the email then stated it was at the date the following week. So it was basically like I had 4 or 5 days notice, even though they claimed a month. So that API, I believe, was shut down on June 13th or something. So it's gone. And because of that, the Uber component is no longer necessary. So it's once again another company just closing off third parties, and there will be an API. It's only available for specific companies that want to deep link into the Uber app.
Right.
So it's a shame to see that go, but I'm guessing unless there was a real big use case for getting travel time and pricing information, maybe you had some awesome automation set up that can't be used anymore. I'd be sad about that, but I don't think it's probably not a mission critical API to be destroyed. But I'm really annoyed at the way Uber just decided to close it off.
Yeah, and we kind of slammed Google and Nest a little bit a few weeks ago, and at least they gave a little bit of time to say, hey, you know what, this is happening in X amount of months, and then you can get grandfathered in, so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
Here, Uber definitely did not. I don't use the API, but it doesn't sound like they actually gave a whole lot of options here. Just going, hey, yeah, we're pulling it in, a week or month or whatever it actually ended up being. Yeah, that's kind of just crappy.
Yeah, I guess when you're the big player in the world, you can just do what you want, I guess.
Yeah.
But touching on Nest, the Nest.com is actually now redirecting to the Google Store, I believe. So even if you want to access any of the developer portals, I think you need to actually know what those URLs were. That they're still there, but because the nest.com website was, at least when we're recording this, was just taken down, there's no way to get back into those. So Google's doubling down on that commitment to get rid of Nest. I think they said by the end of July, didn't they? So they're starting to redirect people away from the site completely. So
which kind of, I get it to some extent. Again, especially when you have a retail business, you're not or a consumer facing retail business. You're not going to have 17 different websites where people want to go. You can just have kind of one portal, right? And start to say, hey, go to, store.google.com or whatever it is to go buy your phones and Nest devices and whatever else you may have, right? And Chromecast and so on and so forth. So I get that part. Yeah, sure, it might be a little frustrating, but I get it. Just you know what, trying to be a little positive here. It does help streamline kind of where you look for any Google products, right? So
yeah, especially when they're adopting that Nest brand.
Yeah.
Everything will be the Nest Hub and all that. So that's a positive, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Brendon, this is where we come to you. There's a lot of other breaking changes in the Home Assistant release this week. We haven't touched on them because they're pretty technical, but if you are affected, just be sure to check out the release notes. But Brendon, this is your time to shine. So I guess we should start off with where or how long you've been using Home Assistant for.
All right, sounds good. I've been using Home Assistant since around late 16, early 17.
Yeah.
I was using some other home automation software previously, and I jumped into Home Assistant. I was, trying to decide between OpenHab and Home Assistant. I remember at that time, and the Python is really kind of what sealed the deal for me. I was sort of learning wanted to learn more Python scripting, and so that's what I did.
Do you have like a software developer background or anything like that would make you want to not use Python?
No. Well, yeah, I guess the Java thing from OpenHab, a lot of IT people aren't really Java happy.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a setback on that part. But now with Docker and stuff, I feel like I'm not so anti-Java just because it's easy to move between machines. But yeah, Python was a big push, big benefit. So yeah, I have an IT background. Exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. So you mentioned kind of you were dabbling with a couple. How long have you been kind of home automating or automating your home just in general, even without Home Assistant or any other platforms?
So in around 2012, I started. I got a condo and decided I wanted to do lights and locks and all this stuff, and it was sort of before the Internet of Things IoT world sort of took off. So it was a little bit different landscape, I'd say. But yeah, it was a different program. I did basically a similar setup where I had the software application as kind of the main hub of the house. I didn't have like a Leviton or an Omni panel.
Yeah.
Sort of as the main point. So it was basically the same deal.
Interesting. Okay, that's cool. So and from a controller perspective, kind of what was your like first controller or like first brain of
So the first program I used was this software called Charmed Court.
Okay.
It was a Windows based, or it still is actually a Windows based application. It's very powerful in what you can do, sometimes more so than Home Assistant, but I was running into problems and it didn't quite fit for me. So yeah, I switched out, and actually I switched to Home Assistant right after I got married, because I didn't want to make that switch like before because we were super busy with all the wedding stuff.
Right.
And then so I got half of it ready, and then like right after we got back from our honeymoon, I started, flipping the switches and making the transition more rapidly. So
you just said there, and I thought it was very brave of you coming onto the Home Assistant podcast to say that something else was more powerful than Home Assistant. What was that CQC could do better than Home Assistant in some, like, where do you think it was more powerful?
CQC has been around for ages, way before when I got onto it. So it has a lot of, I guess, more legacy home automation
Hmm.
feel to it. It has this whole thing where it can control your media. You can create a GUI using your Windows application, and draw forms kind of like in like a VB form designer.
Yeah.
And you can create your own buttons and what they do. It has its own scripting language, um, it has its own IDE. It's modular, so you can run different components on different computers. So it's pretty powerful software. Um, I guess one of the big drawbacks is it's one developer, and and because of that, it doesn't have a lot of what Home Assistant has. You go to the Home Assistant website and it has like 1,000 or more
Mm.
integrations, and
Yeah, yeah.
CQC is, they don't have a lot of people involved because it's a paid application, and it's not open source. So the integrations don't come out as fast, and there's not as many. So, and it's not as like hackish, where you can script right under the covers, integrate
Right.
with like a side scripts. I mean, it's just because it runs on Windows, it's just a little more difficult, and the way the developer designs CQC it's somewhat closed, where everything sort of runs inside of it,
Yeah.
and that sort of limits, the expandability to the hackish, things that I personally find appealing. So
Yeah, that's interesting. And I guess that's the problem, right? Like when you've got closed source versus open source, you've only got one developer that can really push out those updates, and then you see like this is where the benefit of open systems really come in.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And again, Linux too, right? It's just a lot more scriptability, a lot more of that kind of stuff.
Yep, precisely.
And
Yeah.
portable.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I guess is a good segue into my next question for you, Brendon, which is you mentioned before you're familiar with Docker. So are you running, like, how are you running Home Assistant? Have you got a Raspberry Pi somewhere with Docker spun up or Haskell or anything?
Yeah, I run Home Assistant in a Python virtual environment on sort of an industrial heatsink computer. Um,
Okay, that's interesting.
I had a Raspberry Pi for a while that I used as a add-on to CQC to do audio,
Yeah.
the text to speech, because CQC didn't have it didn't have a great thing, so I rolled my own with the Raspberry Pi, and I went through just in that I just had the flash card issues, and so I abandoned that pretty quickly.
Interesting. That's cool.
And so I'm guessing, is that like physically located at your house, like that special heatsink server?
Yeah, it is. Yes, it's in my house.
Nice.
For a while, actually, I ran CQC in the cloud, but the developer didn't like. He was I was having problems, and he was concerned that was kind of the reason for my issues. But
Right.
so I stopped doing that a while back, and it turned out that wasn't the case. But I never made it back to the cloud.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Did you ever have to worry about, hey, my internet's going down, or, whatever like that? Or is it that, you don't find your home automation stuff as critical?
The internet here rarely goes down, but
Yeah.
I mean, there's always like a secret, non-home automation way to get in or to the house, or, whatever. Control the lights. I mean, it's kind of crippled, but you can still operate. It's not the end of the world, I guess. So
Sure.
yeah.
Interesting. So what, good segue here is, what do you use in your home? Like, what components do you have?
I have a laundry list. I don't know if we're gonna go through everything, but
No, that's fine. Just high level.
I would say some of the main things. Obviously, the lighting. I would touch on that because it's pretty unique. I have this technology called UPB.
Okay.
Quick way, what that is, it works over the power lines. So the signals run through the power lines. It's not wireless or anything. And I use that for outlets and lights.
Similar to the old X10 home automation
Yeah,
protocol?
exactly.
Very cool.
Exactly, just like X10, but a lot better.
Yeah.
Then I have there's this company CAI that makes this web control, they call it, and I use that for a lot of things. I guess it's basically like an ESP8266 kind of, but a little bit more flexible in the fact that you can program PLC code on it,
Oh,
which makes it pretty cool because then you can sort of it has its own built-in internal automation as well as you can control it and get data out of it from HTTP. So
Ah.
so I use that to control my furnace, the sprinklers, the door locks, and some other stuff. So that's pretty handy device.
very cool.
Wow. So do you have like multiple of them like spread across the house, like doing various tasks?
I have two of them in the garage, and all the wires run to the
Oh,
central
right. Yeah.
location. So,
Yep.
but yeah, you definitely could spread them around. They have a humidity and temperature sensor connections on them as well, so you can use it to do other stuff. So like if I have PLC code, for example, on it that says uh, the furnace can't run for more than 30 minutes in one go, and the furnace won't run if the temperature in the house is over 75 degrees. So just in case, my home automation software blows up or goes crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Okay.
That's really cool. So how did you push that data into Home Assistant using like MQTT or anything to make that accessible to Home Assistant to control?
It's actually just HTTP gets it's a polling cycle, so
Ah,
every
nice.
every so often, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm guessing like a REST sensor or a REST switch you've got set up in
Yeah.
Home Assistant. Like, yeah, if you need to, you can just grab data out of it, and
Yep,
that's really
precisely.
cool.
Yep. I have the whole I guess if we're gonna move on here, I got the whole Xiaomi world with Zigbee to MQTT. I think that's very popular, so I don't
Yeah.
know if there's
Yeah.
much to say there.
How about anything for presence? Are you?
Oh yeah, you guys ask everybody that. That's right.
Yeah, it's one of our favorite topics.
Because everyone's unique.
Yeah, the presence thing, that's I just was so one of the things I started to do with CQC was I want to just ping the phones, and see if somebody's home based on pinging the phones,
Yeah.
because there was really no fancy presence back then, and that's actually what uncovered a bunch of some bugs in CQC. But so that's what I was doing for a long time, just pinging. And then I put a button. It's part of the UPB system that next to the door that basically you press when you leave and you're gone. And it's super simple and it's works reliably. I don't do anything like amazingly fancy like I hear some people with Bluetooth and GPS and all that stuff.
And
So
Bayesian sensors, working out probabilities if someone's where someone's in
exactly,
the house, and yeah.
you can get very complicated in that. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's dead simple. It's just if somebody's home or not. So, and it flips the switch when you press the button on the way out.
Nice. Okay, that's awesome. So, what's some of your favorite kind of automations that you've got with kind of everything that you talked about?
One of my favorite ones is the one for cycling. It's not that complicated, but it's just so cool when you get home going from a bike ride and the garage door automatically opens. It's based on Robbie's, app, and you know how the iPhone has activity data that it reports. So
Yeah.
that was that. I thought that was super awesome.
Oh, so you've actually hooked up your Home Assistant app to be able to see what activity you're doing. So in the case of, riding a bike, it will know that, okay, you're riding a bike, and that will report to Home Assistant. So then when you get home, it will know to open the garage door for you.
Exactly. Instead of unlocking the front door, it opens the garage door. So
Yeah, that's really
Nice.
smart. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's actually the first time I think I've heard of anybody use the activity sensors like that. That's wicked.
Yeah, I was excited to hear that that was capable and set it up. So,
Yeah. How reliable do you find it?
so far it's worked 100% of the time. It hasn't failed yet.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
knock on wood.
No, that's awesome.
Some of the other automations that are pretty cool. The lawn is, I like that because you can program, your own custom watering schedule based on weather and, times and all that. So
Mhm.
that's pretty handy.
So have you got that programmed through Home Assistant, or are you using something like Open Sprinkler or another like sprinkler management system to do that?
So yeah, it's all Home Assistant because the solenoids for the lawn are all plugged into those web control boards.
Right.
Right. Yep.
So yeah, it's just HTTP commands to turn the sprinklers on and off, and that's all. Uh, d- the logic is all done through Home Assistant. So
Nice.
Yeah, that's nice.
oh, the vacuum. That's I got crazy with the vacuum recently.
Like one of those robot vacuum cleaners.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't want I don't want to have to decide if I should run the vacuum or not. And
Right.
I want like a dynamic schedule. So I set it up so it runs and then it reminds you. Wait, what it does is so when you wake up in the morning, it runs like the whole, regular automations, and then it puts a delay, and then 15 minutes later, it sends a notification saying, "Do you want to run the vacuum on your phone?" And it gives you like a list of all the areas in the house you got to remember to like make sure it doesn't get stuck, you know?
Interesting.
Right.
Okay.
So you
Yep.
gotta like pick up your USB cables and like some socks on the floor or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
and then if you hit yes or no, then it sets a flag, and then when you leave the house, the vacuum runs based on your yes or no. So I thought that was fun.
Oh, nice. So basically, if you let's say in your closet you've got socks on the ground, so you're like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna hit no, so don't do that room. And then it kind of does whatever else. Is that
It's all or nothing. So you either got the house ready for it or not.
got it? Got it. Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So it's basically saying, all right, before you go, do you want me to clean your house? If you do, you need
Yep.
to clean up your stuff first, and then I'll vacuum for you.
Exactly. Exactly. So I had some
That's
fun
really
with
cool.
that.
So I can see here you've got like, because I'm really big on Xiaomi stuff. You've got a doorbell and a mailbox. I'm guessing a sensor to detect when your mail's done. So does Xiaomi have an official like Zigbee doorbell that you use, or have you done something else with it?
Oh, so the doorbell, I have one of those old I think it's like a 24-volt AC doorbell.
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
so, great ideas online, like always. Just shove a Xiaomi contact sensor on your doorbell, and it's got the magnetic trigger,
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
and that's how I did it. I came up with initially I came up with some way complicated things that did not work out very well. And then I tried the Xiaomi thing, and it was so elegantly simple, and it works perfectly. And then that triggers some automations that use the facial recognition and some other stuff. But yeah, it works flawlessly, the Xiaomi thing.
Interesting. So what are you using for facial recognition? Is that the stuff that's built in, or is that are you doing something else?
I use Facebox actually, which
Okay.
I don't know if it's built in. I spun up a Docker container, I remember, for it, but basically it sends so if the house is set in a certain mode, I have it so if somebody rings the doorbell and it's in a special mode, then the door will unlock for the the person
Hmm.
at the door, so that way I can sort of give people access,
Hmm.
when but I don't have to actually control their access like real time, so they can.
So would that use like facial recognition to say, all right, when I press the button, it will recognize someone's face and then unlock the door automatically for them? Or will it just send you a notification and prompt you to unlock the door whenever the doorbell's pressed?
No, yeah, it just unlocks it for them and sends me a notification.
Ah, that's sweet.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that way, yeah, people can get in, but it's obviously not like Apple's 3D facial recognition. So somebody
Yeah,
could
yep.
theoretically just, hey, print out a picture, and
Sure.
but who really knows about now? The whole world knows, but yeah,
So maybe don't maybe got to change it up a little bit now, but yeah, yeah.
Tell everyone to wear a fake mustache when they want to use that.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, there you go.
No, that's cool. That's interesting. Okay.
And I'm guessing just the vibration sensor is just, and whenever the mailbox gets
on the
tampered
mailbox?
with it, it just knows to tell you that there's been mail in there.
Yeah, precisely. That's exactly how the mailbox functions.
That's really cool. I actually have a letterbox that's just really like a pain in the bum to be able to see if there is mail in there. So I might have to borrow that. Yeah.
Yeah. I just put it on the side and the mailman just the whole thing kind of vibrates. So
Yeah,
Right,
that makes sense.
That's cool.
yeah.
Either that or somebody just hit your mailbox, one of the two.
Yeah.
Which is entirely possible. But yeah, I'm still trying to figure out if there's anything because I've got a community mailbox, right? So it's like one of those. I don't know if you guys have them there, but like a giant thing with like 19 or 20 or whatever mailboxes in there. And I've got a slot in there, right? And it's like, okay, and it's technically owned by Canada Post for us. It's not my property, right? So I don't know how much I can do, or I don't know if the mail person's going to be like, nope, I'm ripping this out, or how that works. So because for me, I've got my door, but they can actually open the main door that has all the residences doors, right? So so I don't know, because they just have a key, they turn it, open one big thing, and they just get the slots, whereas I can only access my one little slot. So I don't know how that works. I don't know. I've open ideas if anybody's got.
Can you put like a motion sensor inside it? I'm guessing it's probably, how far away is it from your house? Like,
it's right across the street, so it's like a few meters out from my house.
So you could put like maybe a motion sensor in there, and as soon as it detects, like a letter going into it, it will be able to send a signal to you to say, hey, I've detected motion, therefore you've got mail.
Possibly, but it might still pick up the person, right? Because if they open the main door, then it'll detect them moving.
Yep.
Maybe TensorFlow is good enough now to detect a mailman.
Maybe, actually, that's not a bad idea. Stick a little Wi-Fi camera in there. My Wi-Fi does reach out there, so
just have it. Yeah.
Battery powered cam. Yeah, just a little a tiny little spy cam just for the size of it, and stick it in there, and after that, running back to TensorFlow.
Like every day, you may as well just go out and check the mail.
That's true. Though it's also enclosed in a giant metal box. So I don't know what that's going to do for RF from Wi-Fi.
Right?
Yeah, that's tough.
I mean, I think there's bigger problems, but yes, that is one of the problems.
Those are the fun ones.
That's right. Oh man.
And what sort of custom skills are you running for your Amazon Echo?
Oh yeah, shoot. You know what? I don't even. The one I can. It's been so long since I've touched any of that stuff, but I know you can set the channel of the TV. You can just say like turn on Fox or ABC or whatever, that kind of thing. I did. But I switched. I converted a lot of them to the smart home routines, I guess. Amazon came out with that.
Yes.
Yep.
So I tried to switch it over to that as much as possible, but there are still some things like you can, because it's nice, you can, when you do the custom skill, Amazon will then talk back to you whatever you want it to say.
Yeah,
whereas
that's
I guess
right.
with the smart home stuff, you can't do that. So you can ask her the temperature, and it'll tell you all the temperature stats. That's one thing we use a lot still. That's still on the custom skill.
Cool.
Because I think with routines, I think one of the actions is you can actually get her to say a response now. So like if you had a routine, for example, like play this style of music, you can have her like do her routine, and then the last action would be, say on the device that was spoken to this sentence.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
you can't make it dynamic, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
So it's fixed.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You can't. She won't tell you which windows are open or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, she'll just say, "Hey, windows are open."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I've actually started to do essentially text to speech, right? So whenever somebody opens the door, it'll say, "Hey, front door is open, back door is open, whatever."
Mm-hmm.
There's a cool custom component for that. I'm actually writing a blog post around just kind of what that is, but yeah, it's pretty neat. I mean, so there may be some ways to leverage that, right? Where maybe, even if it's a little clunky and you say, hey, I'll have like a Boolean switch. And if that switch is triggered, then read out this and this and this information. And all that stuff gets pulled from Home Assistant, right? So
Yeah, that's Keaton Taylor's media player you're talking about. Is that right?
there's actually a couple of different components. Yeah. So the one I'm using is Keaton Taylor's media component. There's also one from, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but Walt Howd, and which is HALX Sorry, I said the word, but that's what it's called. Can't help it. But yeah, no, I'm using the media player one that Keaton Taylor built, and it's great.
Yeah, actually started using that one a little bit as well. It's been working relatively well, other than the fact that you have to renew the cookies every once in a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so that's not automatic?
No, you have to delete the pickle file and then redo the captcha, I guess, like every 6 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's annoying. Bloody captures.
I know.
Yeah, that's what happens when we make these workarounds that aren't really supported.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, how do you primarily interact with your home automations? Is it just everything kind of does itself and then you augment with voice or tablets or something like that, or do you use your phones or?
Yeah, it's just mostly through Alexa, I'd say.
Yeah.
There's a couple things we'll do with the phone, like sometimes the door lock. Like I don't have real IoT door locks. There's like DIY, and so sometimes the lock unlock gets out of sync, so you kind of have to fiddle with that on the phone.
Right.
But then there's 90% I would say is turn on the TV, change the channels. Sometimes we use that, and then turn on all these, the house fan and all that kind of stuff. So
okay, that's kind of cool. And what kind of stuff are you? I mean, home automation's one of those constantly ongoing projects. So, do you have any plans to expand what you're doing, or are there any other automations you want to add? Things like that. What's your ideal to-do list?
The weather's been getting hot, so I tried this last year, the portable AC unit. I have this, IR controlled thing. So I was trying to figure out. I think I'm going to try to figure out again if I can get it working, but it's sharp and I don't know the IR codes and I don't have an IR reader. So that's on my list of to-dos. I think I've looked for the IR codes once, but didn't find them. So I'm going to try that again.
Could you get something like a Sensibo, or even like maybe a Broadlink IR blaster? Maybe I know the Sensibo definitely you just like point at it and you put like it'll ask you, what's the point your remote, and press the off button, and then it will detect the brand of AC that it is, and then it will match its codes, because it'll have like a database full of codes already. So you could probably use something like that, although it is cloud based. Alternatively, I think there's I've got a couple of, they are called Remotech ZXT 120s. They are a Z-Wave IR blaster. They are designed for AC units, and they once again have a whole bunch of manufacturers pre-built into the unit. So in the Z-Wave config, you just change it. All right, this is the manufacturer, set this to this config, and then just trial and error. Attempt to turn it off and on and see if it works.
So could I just send you the brand? And it sounds like you know all this stuff, and you could send me the IR codes.
No, so
I actually just Googled it.
Oh, here we go. Maybe we have an answer for you.
Well, I Googled the Sensibo's website, right? And I just typed Sharp, and they're like, yep, we support Sharp, right? So it should be able to detect the IR codes like you were saying. Yeah. I don't know if that means you can steal the IR codes off of them or what, but... I
don't think they share that.
So
that's the annoying bit. If you want the actual raw codes to send yourself through like your own IR blaster, then I'm guessing that would be pretty hard to come by.
Yeah, and the only thing is, it's I'm just looking right now. The Sensibo on sale is like $120, right? So it's not the cheapest of sensors, right? As with most home automation things, but so yeah, if you're looking for DIY, then that may be like $7 rather than like 120, right?
Yep. I have a blaster, just no codes, so I
Yeah.
gotta figure this out.
Yeah.
I've like when my parents come and I'm on vacation, that's a problem because I don't know how other people do this, but I have a billion automations and none of them check if I'm on vacation or not. And I always forget to add the logic for vacation to automations.
Right.
And so now it's just a total mess under the hood. It's like I don't even want to touch it. So I'm trying to figure out like maybe there's an easy way to do it that's going to be built into Home Assistant soon. Like they'll expand like the person component or the areas or something. I don't know. It's just kind of overwhelming at this point.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
I've got a couple of ways I do it. So I have, 2 locations where guests could be, one in the living room on the pull-out couch or in the spare bedroom / office. And, once again, like if someone's walking into my office at 3 a.m. in the morning and they're a guest, they don't necessarily want the lights to come on. So I just use input booleans in Home Assistant, is a guest staying in this room? And if so, the logic is in those automations, But I'm guessing if you don't want to go in and edit, all those automations and add in that logic, maybe you could just disable those automations completely because you can actually turn an automation off and on in Home Assistant.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would put all the automations that you don't want to fire when there's someone over into a Home Assistant group. And then when you flick that Boolean on, there would be just another automation that goes, all right, anything that's in this group, turn it off. And then when the guest is gone, you flick it back on and it re-enables all those automations at once.
So that would work perfectly, it sounds like, except I use AppDaemon for most of my automations.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But
okay.
well, you know what? AppDaemon allows you to do constraints. AppDaemon allows you to set constraints, so I think you could do like an input boolean on the app that sets a constraint so the callbacks don't run while that constraint is fulfilled or something. So maybe you could do something similar like that.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, it's different method of doing it, just same concept though, right? I mean, mine's not too different. Mine's actually a lot simpler than Phil's, which is I have an input boolean and that says, and I'll trigger it by telling my Echo to turn on guest mode. And basically that just disables, it doesn't even disable some automations. It just runs through another list of turn off these things. Like when I say like, hey, good night or whatever, it'll only turn off, like it won't turn off the guest bedroom light and the guest bathroom lights and things like that. Cause I don't want to, leave people in the dark when they're in the washroom or what have you. So,
the classic.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just cause, or even if it's in the, if I'm staying up and like I'm watching a movie or something in my just in my room and somebody else is trying to sleep, I don't want basically all of my automations are paused for that room, right? Or they don't get triggered. It's not that the automation itself is paused. It's a separate automation that just doesn't run. And then when I say hey good night, that actually does a check of is guest mode on or off, and then based on that, it'll run the specific script.
Yeah.
Again, it's super simple. It's not efficient in any way, but it works, right?
Yeah.
So how do you tell it, do you have like 2 scripts? Like one script is a general good night and another script is a good night when there's guests, and do you trigger it that way? Or like, I'm just thinking of the flow, like how do you...
It's one goodnight script that I have, and it's just that goodnight script checks if my guest mode Boolean is on or off. So if it's on, then it'll run one set of things. If it's off, it'll run another set of things, right? So it's basically it's a nested automation, right? And then it says if guest mode on, then turn off this, turn off this, turn off this. If not, then just turn off this, right? So
right, okay. So I'm trying to picture your automation. So in the trigger, is that where it's turning everything off?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, in the action?
In the action, yes.
Yeah. So do you have like it turn all the main stuff off and then you've got a condition at the bottom, if guest mode is off, also turn these things off?
Correct.
Okay, yes. Yeah. Okay, that's pretty simple actually.
It's straightforward. It's honestly stupid easy, right? So even if you do something like that with AppDaemon and again, the simplest way that I thought of like 2 years ago or whenever it is I made this, it's just, turn off certain things, don't turn off other things, and just control that based on a Boolean, right? And if you want to go further, then you use something like what Phil said is, hey, great, how do I I know that the person's crashing on the couch. Great. Then you have different zones that you trigger.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Just an if statement. So.
And then I guess if you want to really automate it, you track them through Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. So whenever they come over and they're connected, which we laugh, but I've done it before.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You can.
Happy bubbles or whatever.
Yeah, exactly right. And then if they're at home, like if they're in your house after 9 p.m., then clearly they're staying the night.
Yeah.
Or you just haven't picked them out early enough, and it switches on the guest mode, and away it goes for you. I guess that's taking it to the next level. But
yeah, exactly. But yeah, and then exactly. You can do like a happy pulse, or even simply just check your wireless network or check your router. Is you'll need to know their MAC address, but is MAC address ABCD connected? Yeah, okay, then Buddy is here, right?
Yeah, but then you don't know what room they are in. You need.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, if you want that level of resolution, then you do NFC. Awesome.
All right. Yeah. Brendon, is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap things up?
Nothing specific. I can ramble on and on about home automation all the time, but yeah, I think we're pretty good for the day.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. You have a really interesting setup. I really like your do-it-yourself approach. I don't think we've had anyone that's got a cooled server like yours and using Xiaomi buttons for doorbells. So really cool setup, and thanks for sharing it with us.
Sure.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Had a good time.
All right. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Take care.
If you want to share your Home Assistant journey or come on as a guest, reach out to us at feedback@hasspodcast.io. That's HASS podcast.io.
The Home Assistant podcast is hosted by Phil Hawthorne and myself, Rohan Karamandi. For links to topics that we discussed today, check out our show notes on hasspodcast.io.